I'm not actually going to do an introduction to today's episode because I won't do her any justice, because her story and all her achievements are incredible, which you'll find out after as you listen to the show unfold. So what I will do is just ask that if you do like this episode, share it with someone who you think would benefit from listening to it. Like, subscribe, click the bell on YouTube for notifications, all that kind of good stuff. Now, enjoy the show. So Terriane, as we were just saying before I hit record, I was reading your bio that you sent through, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this justice and read it out in the intro to the podcast. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what you've been doing, and where you are now?
Sure. Well, I suppose I kind of label myself as an amateur athlete. So in other words, I've never been paid for my sports, but I have competed in multiple sports. I'm that, I suppose, high achiever because I'm always looking for what's next. But I suppose my first, I say representative, I was an aerobics champion back in my early days. So this is, think lycra, lots of lycra and leg warmers type days and that. But that was a bit of fun. And then, so I'm from New Zealand originally, and I live in Australia now, just for those bit of context there. I think one of my first main sports was water ski speed skiing. So I represented New Zealand for that particular sport. Crazy sport. You basically ski in all places all around the world at 100 miles an hour. That was a sport that I think, though, I credit a lot of my mental aptitude, my mental strength, my mental discipline, and that was from that particular sport. And more recently, I now do outrigger canoe paddling. I'm a national champion 2 years in a row. I actually took 15 years off, or 12 to 15 years off to raise my son, and then came back in the last 3 years. So the last 2 years I've managed to Australian national champion, fastest woman in Australia over 10Ks, which in my 50s I'm pretty proud of, just quietly. So I've done things. Yeah, so I've done things with that sport, which has taken me across the Molokai Channel in Hawaii. I've raced in Tahiti, I've raced Singapore, New Zealand, and obviously here in Australia. So, but I think the thing that they are my passion, they're my sport, they're what keep me sane, but they're also the things that give me the most life lessons that I've been able to then transport over into business, work, and all areas of my life. So, so that's a little bit about me.
Amazing, thank you. And that picture in the background, is that outrigger canoe racing?
So that is outrigger canoe racing. So that was actually taken around about 2007, I think. That was a women's crew. That there's a race up in the Whitsundays here in Australia called Hamilton Island. So, and it was a 40K, what we call changeover race, where there's 10 people in a crew. There's only 6 people in a canoe at a time, and you change live throughout the race. So you have a support boat, and they will drop paddlers off in front of you, and your steerer lines them up. 2 or 3 people will jump out, 2 or 3 people will jump in mid-race, and you do that for about 42 kilometres. And that particular photo, I was just saying, has a lot of memories to it, which is why it's on my wall, in that we not only won that year, but we broke the women's record. And that particular shot was halfway through the race, and we were just coming up behind a men's crew. So for those women out there, when you're a woman athlete and you come up against men, it's kind of that extra incentive there to just go that little bit harder. And particularly where you hear the men in their support boat going, "Come on, you blokes, let's get going." And they're going, "I think that's a woman's crew." And we're going, "Yes, it is." So passing a men's crew in the race is actually a really nice feeling. Yeah. Lots of good memories for that particular race.
I imagine you say you change people during the race in open water. I find it hard getting in and out of those things just in still water. I can't even imagine what it's like doing it in open water with waves.
Well, let me tell you this. So the coach of that particular crew with that club, the other reason why I say this is I was actually competing with Olympians, Commonwealth Games medalists, swimmers, Iron Woman, like the top of the top. And there were only 2 of us in that crew that weren't an Olympian, a Commonwealth Games medalist, or a world champion Iron person. I was one of those 2. And actually in that race, there were a couple of things.
To perform then.
Oh, extra pressure and to perform, and also, well, there were a couple of things. If you didn't get in the canoe within 2 or 3 strokes, the coach actually got her paddle and slapped you over the head and made you let go. So I actually learned how to get into that canoe within about 5 seconds. Like, it was something that was phenomenal. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was you have the race, the first part of the race, the main crew races for about 30 minutes, and it's pretty intense because in that particular race, there was about 100 canoes. And there's a part where you race around the island, and the first changeover, the support boat comes up, drops you in the water, and you're waiting. You've got all these canoes, all these boats are everywhere, and you're trying to, let your canoe know this is where you are. Well, our support boat driver dropped us off. So there was me and one other. Neither of us were swimmers. So the majority of our crew are either Ironwoman or Olympic swimming medalists. And they dropped us off. All I remember is I had my head down and I'm swimming as fast as I can. I look up and I see our canoe go past us because we weren't where we were meant to be. And she is yelling, and the coach of the crew is in the boat, and she is yelling and swearing and, at us because we're not where we're meant to be. So not only did we not make it, because I wasn't a fast enough swimmer, and they hadn't given us enough time, we had to swim another 200 metres back to the boat, get back on the boat and have another go further up. I said, can you give us some more time to swim to get to where we need to go to? So, and we get to the end of the race and that she's looking for, right, who's going to do the last changeover? And she looks at me and I went, just no. She said, this needs to be a fast changeover. Who have we got who's the fastest? And I'm just like, not me. Definitely not me. I was probably one of the freshest in the boat. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine in the canoe. But if you want me to swim to that thing, you've got all these other people who are way better than me.
You must be absolutely exhausted. Swimming 200 metres just to get to the boat.
To get into the boat. That's right. Yeah.
You've got to do the work when you get in. Oh, no, sod that.
Yeah. Well, I think you said to me you're a mountain person. I kind of look at it and go, whilst I love nature and all of it, if I'm not in the ocean, by water, a little part of my soul dies. So as much as that's great, my husband and I had this conversation. I said, well, are you mountains or you ocean? And he said, I can do both. I said, I can do ocean all day long. So I think you're either or, right?
You are, yeah. Yeah, I'd be on that mountain in the picture behind you. I'd be at the top of that looking down on you going, phew.
What are they doing, right? What are they doing?
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
So I wanted to kind of talk about some of the adventures that you've had, which I've been reading about and shared on your podcast as well, but also the kind of lessons it's taught you, the kind of adventure that you describe as being a thread running through your whole life. And I want to kind of understand the lessons learned, etc. But first, let's get into some of those that you've had. There was one that I read which kind of made me so jealous, which was you were racing whales in mid-ocean, I believe.
I have to say, this past season, just gone. So here in Australia, what we have is kind of like about from now onwards, now to about November, the whales pass through. So it's kind of like they come up from Antarctica or New Zealand or wherever they come up. They come up from the south and they pass through and they go north into the warmer waters. And then around April, May, they come back down with their babies. So you have the baby whales and mum and dad and whatever else coming through. So they come through a lot slower than what they do on the way up. Like, we've been whale hunting as we go out. I say whale hunting, but just basically seeing the whales. And I haven't seen them this year coming through. Lots of other people have. But this particular last season, so a couple of months ago actually, were the most sightings that I have ever had. And normally, so where I live on the Gold Coast here in Queensland in Australia, there's a seaway that we go through. And normally I wouldn't go out into the ocean. There'd normally be at least two of us, and I have my paddling buddy that we go. But this particular day, the water was calm. It was super flat. And I just kind of thought, you know what? I'm paddling on my own. I normally would only paddle on the Broadwater. I just kind of thought, oh, it's so flat. Oh, bugger it. I'm going. So I headed north, and I would have probably gone I sometimes go about a couple of kilometres off shore, and just, especially when it's flat and you can see forever.
Mm.
So, you just kind of head out. So I'm paddling out there and I saw the whale. So you see the spray that came up. So I just kind of paddled over there. I went, oh, there's a whale. And there's a part of you that has that, I suppose, trepidation. because I've also seen the videos and seen that if you get too close, and sometimes if they're breaching, they don't know, that you're this tiny wee thing, and they can land on top of you. So here I was, and I'm paddling out in that, and I look up and I see, oh, there's a whale, and it's directly ahead of me. So I just kind of stopped paddling and just thought, right, I'm just going to watch. And then I'm looking there and I'm going, it's coming straight towards me. Do I move? Do I paddle back a bit? Do I get out of the way? And I went, no, I'm just going to sit here. And so I've got to say, I put my hands in the water and just connected with the water, took a deep breath, looked around. There was nobody, literally nobody around me for miles. Took a deep breath and just kind of watched this whale slowly making its way towards me. And it would have been, I would say, about 30 meters away from my canoe. And just slowly coming up. And then it just kind of went around me. And then all of a sudden I saw 2 whales. And I thought, oh my God, so there's 2 of them. So there's a little one and there's a big one. And I'm just kind of watching it. And it literally went around me. And then all of a sudden I saw 4 whales. So there was 4 of them all together. So it looked like it was like a mum and dad and 2 babies. I don't know whether that's what they were, but you kind of can't. You kind of like, I'm going, hang on, there's 2 there and there's another 2 there. And they were just playing. It was almost like they were kind of circling me. I literally just sat there. And there was a part of me, because I was in the middle of my training plan, and there was a part of me that kind of went, okay, do I go back to my training plan? And I kind of looked at it and went, do you know what? These are life moments that people would die for who never actually get it. I went, no, your training plan goes out the window. You just sit and enjoy. So I actually paddled with them a little, like, they didn't seem to be bothered by me at all. I was literally, like almost where the plant is behind me here. They were literally there and a little bit further, and then they'd come back and they were on their bellies. They were frolicking. They were literally frolicking all around me. And so I just sat there, and then a jet ski that had just come out the seaway, it came along, and so they stopped playing around me and then started heading south again. And then a boat came along, and so it kind of changed the dynamics. So then I just paddled with it, I think, for about half an hour before, a couple of other boats came along. Then once the boats come along, they get a bit more, I suppose, attention and just head wherever they're going. So, and once they did that, even though they're only going slow, it's at the limit of the speed that I can paddle at. They start, taking off from there. But I look back and go, that particular moment was just one of those moments that I will never forget. I got a little bit of footage, but it was kind of like I kind of got my camera out, but it's like, no, I just want to be with this experience. Yeah, be in the moment and really take in the experience, because, those types of moments don't happen all the time. But I would have to say I probably had 4 encounters, not as good as that one, as close as that one, with them just playing around with me and no one else being out there. But I probably had at least 3 encounters this past season where the whales were that close and I got to paddle with them. So just phenomenal. Well, the fun, if I could add this little thing in as well. So there's whale watching cruises that come from the Gold Coast that come out, and they go and, you pay your $50 or $100 or whatever it is to go and see whales. And and you see these boats and that coming out, I'm going, oh, dudes, if you just had a little canoe, you would see them so much better, because they're not allowed to get within 100 meters of the whales. So you can see them from a distance, you can kind of see them around, but you don't get to experience them in that manner. Yeah, we live in a beautiful part of the world, I would have to say.
It sounds like it, yeah. I was going to ask you, actually, when you said first that no one else was with you, I was like, if I had this story and no one else was with me and I didn't at least get my camera out, no one would believe me at all. It's like, whatever, Ian, shut up.
Well, do you know what? I've had that actually last year was a phenomenal year for wildlife in the ocean, because there was another one in the Broadwater where I couldn't get my phone out fast enough because they were in waterproof cases, and you kind of got to get your canoe down, get it out, get the phone out to be able to take the photo. There was another one that I had that I was like, oh my God, no one will believe this, where there was a pod of dolphins, and I reckon there must have been about 20. Like, I've never seen that many before. And they literally, like, one of them hit my canoe. They came, I don't know if you can see in that boat there's an armor piece that's on the side. They came straight through me. So the whole pod was just completely around me. I was able to touch one of them as they came past me. One came in between my canoe. and me. And I'm trying to get the phone out, trying to record it to say, oh my God, this is phenomenal. I've never had this happen before. But you literally can't get it out. And then you can't push the button. And because I need glasses now, I couldn't get the right app up. And where's my app properly? And where's so some of these things, it's like, oh my God. And when they went past me, it was kind of like the tail end of them. I finally got the camera, and that by then it was kind of too late. And I went, kind of didn't capture it. Oh, well, never mind, keep going. But, there's moments like that was phenomenal. I've never had that before where I just went, what's that in the water? And all of a sudden it was just like, oh my God. And, to be able to actually touch one as it goes past me was just, holy moly, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, incredible. I've
Yeah.
seen a video online which kind of marries up to what was playing in my head when you were talking then, and it was someone on a kayak, and they would see like a circle of bubbles in the water in front of them, and they just got a little closer to see what it was, and then all of a sudden this whale's mouth just comes up and closes around, because they're like circling around all the fish, aren't they, to try and draw them to the surface.
Yeah.
But it was so close to the guy on the canoe, so that's what was kind of playing through my head then as you were talking about it.
Yeah,
Sounds
it happens.
absolutely amazing, and I'm
happens.
not jealous at all. What else have you done then? Kind of along those types of lines, in terms of, you've obviously had your sporting side of things, but what other adventures that are not sporting have you had?
Well, look, I think, I don't know what, you kind of take things for granted. Then somebody's talking about something, you go, I'll do that. I'll do that. Yep. Or I'll try that. So I'm kind of that person. If I'm somewhere, anywhere, I'll give it a go. Whatever is happening there, I'm going, oh, that looks like fun, or they look like they're enjoying themselves. That's the sort of thing that I will potentially do. I have to say, most of my travel has always been sporting related. Like, the reason I've gone somewhere is because I'm either racing and then we stay and have a look and explore and do something like that afterwards. So almost everything, I'm just trying to think, what holidays have I taken that haven't involved some type of sport? And there's very few. So even my family holidays will tend to be skiing or snow skiing or something like that. So there's typically something, there's always got to be an activity. So I'm not a person who will holiday and just sit and do nothing. I'm probably the person who gets there and go, okay, I'll sit for a day. Okay, what can we do? What's there to see? What's there to climb? What's there to, so whether it's hiking in the bushes or, venturing out on some tour or something, that's probably how I spend the majority of my time. And if I'm not doing that, then I apply the same things that I do with my sport, I suppose, in my business. So it's either working or sporting, is what I would say. That's probably the majority of my life, is working or sporting. And so I think the other adventure that I would say is that I like the adventures I do within my work, which is, how do I get my clients and the people that I work with to live their life kind of like an adventure as well, so that it's not work. I think I have a premise that if you're doing what you love, then your work won't feel like work. It'll be something that you just do because you can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So
As you were talking then about what you like when you go on holidays, and you go and you say, right, what are we doing? I'm along similar lines as well. I used to be the person who would fight over sun lounges and sit by the pool all day, but I just can't do it anymore. I just feel like I'm wasting my life away. And so now, I'm along the same lines of, right, what are we doing? Where are we going? I'll let the boss lady plan it all out. I just say to her, as long as I can have 2 days to myself, one where I'm just off hiking and in the mountains or whatever it is, wherever we go, as long as there's a nice, good all-day walk for me and the dog Milo, who is snoring in the background there.
The background.
Then I'm good, and we'll do whatever else we need to do. So I'll let her plan everything whilst I have just that 1 day to myself.
Right, exactly. Well, I've got a trip coming up in November, actually, which is not sport related, which is with my sister and my mother. And my mum is not doing so great. She's got a few ailments and stuff. So she wanted to create this memory of the three of us going away together. And I'm looking, and my sister and I are chalk and cheese, complete opposites. So she never played sport her life and during her life. And I look at her and go, she was the arty crafty person, whereas I was the one out climbing trees. My mum's a bit of an adventurer, but with her ailments now, she can't, her head is willing, her body can't keep up. So while she say, oh, let's go and do this, let's go and do that, she sent pictures going, oh, what about this? Can we do this? And I think she sent me a picture of this ladder from, I don't know where, and I actually looked it up and went, Mum, this is in China, not in Bali, where it's just this ladder across this big ravine or something like that, where they're crossing it and heading up this mountain. And for me, I'm like, hell no, not doing that. And then she's got some other one where it was like a bungee, but it wasn't a bungee. Oh, then she put up, what's the bat wings when you're the gliding, when you come off the mountain? Oh, base jumping. She put up
Base
something
jumping,
like
yeah.
that, base jumping. Yeah, so she had this. And she goes, what about this? Do you think we could try this? And I'm going, what planet are you living on? This is my 72-year-old mother going, that's a hell no. Like, yes, I like my adventure, but hell no. So she's going, what about this and what about that? And she goes, oh, I'm just thinking. And I think she's trying to, she was trying to find things that we could do that could make memories. But my sister will be the one at the pool. So, she'll be the one, and I'm going, well, this trip's going to be interesting. So I think I'll have a little bit of time at the pool. And then we'll be trying to stop my mother from trying to do things that she can no longer do.
Jump off a cliff top.
That's right. I said, Mum, how about we start with snorkeling? Let's see how you go with your snorkeling. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Well, there's so I watch. Do you know Ewan McGregor, the actor?
Yes.
He does like a TV series with his friend Charlie Bowman where they ride their motorcycles like across the world. So they've done one the long way round, which was from UK to UK, traveling across like Kazakhstan, Russia, and then across the US and then back over to the UK. They've done one the long way down, which is through Europe and then down to South Africa, all the way through Africa.
Right.
They've done the long way up, which is from the tip of South America all the way up to, I think it was like the top of Route 66 or something in the US. And they've just done one, the long way home, which is just all around Europe. And they were in, I think it was either Switzerland or Austria. And so this might be a compromise with the base jumping. And they're at the top of a mountain and they have it's like a tandem paragliding. And so they're just floating around on this paragliding in this mountain valley, mountains either side, and they're just gently paragliding along, and it's all nice and calm. So that might be a compromise for the base jumping.
Well, there was one. There's a place here, and I said I would do it for my 50th, and I haven't done it yet. There's a place here somewhere where they have like sleeping bags and the hang gliders. And they had a tandem or something, and you're in like what I call but looks like a sleeping bag. And I said, well, do that, Mum. I can put you in a sleeping bag and have somebody else do it all for you. That I can do for you. We can see if we can do that. I said, but no offense to anyone who's in Bali, but I'm not doing it in Bali. I'll do it in Australia. I'll do it where I'm happy with the safety regulations and that around. We're not doing it in Bali. I'll do it in New Zealand and I'll do it here, but I'm not doing it there. So, we'll have that talk. But that'll be interesting to see if Ewan McGregor comes down to Australia and does maybe a bike tour around Australia then, because he hasn't been here.
No, I don't think he has, no.
Oh, so that'll be an interesting one, because one of the things that I do say about Australia is, and I do love, I've gone blank on his name. Who's the Scottish comedian? Billy Connolly.
Billy Connolly.
Yeah, so he did a thing when he came down here, and I always say, you're not meant to live here because everything here tries to kill you. And I would have to say he's not wrong. As a Kiwi who's come here, and I've lived in Australia now for almost 28 years, but still I live in certain places because I won't go near the wildlife because everything here is meant to kill you. Like I even say to people, my fellow Kiwis in that, we laugh. I said, sometimes I'll go home and I'll just sit in the grass and I'll just be like, kind of like massaging the grass. And they're like, what are you doing? I said, well, even the grass in Australia tries to stab you. It's hard. You have feet on. You have to wear shoes everywhere because of the critters. And just everything, just the whole landscape here is harsh. Whereas in New Zealand, I'm kind of like, well, when we get home, the grass is soft. Like you lie in the grass and almost do angels. Whereas here, it's like, ouch, there's big ants that come up and bite you, or there's always something that bites you or stabs you or something here in Australia. So I reckon that would be a fun thing for Ewan McGregor. If you're listening to this, Ewan, come on down to Australia.
Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. The dog's just woke up. He's starting to look at me and wonder what I'm doing. So take us to a moment of, I don't know whether it was one adventure or one moment in your business, perhaps, where it taught you taught you about yourself, what you're capable of, and what you're capable of withstanding, and all resilience and risk and all that kind of thing? What's one moment that kind of pulls out to the front of your mind?
That's yeah, quite a few little moments. Actually, I was thinking about this, and one of the things that I do, so I bring my sports. I am who I am, and I do what I do in one area, I do in all areas. So, and that's kind of the way that I like to see people. You know, one of the things that I teach people is like, well, why are you different for this than that? If you are this person, you should be the same, right? And it's about expressing yourself fully in everything that you do. So one of the things that I do bring across from my sport is I'm always looking for, well, there's a couple of lessons, main lessons that I live by. One is when I'm racing is what's the shortest point to the goal. I don't see the point of taking the long way round. I'm always looking for, from a racing perspective, okay, where do I need to get to? What's the shortest or fastest way? It's not always the shortest, but the fastest way to get there. And so I look at that through business and life as well. Now, when it comes to my sports, I also am very disciplined in terms of I'm very clear on my goals. I'm very clear on what it is that I want to achieve. I'm very clear on my visualizations and my processes before an event or before a race or something like that. I have a very set program that I run before I do any of those sort of things. And because I've been doing sports for so many years, it's kind of like just a given. And so I also do that with my business. And one of the things that I do remember, I constantly, and I giggle, and I'm kind of giggling at this because I often will get it wrong, but in a good way. So what happened in business, actually, it happened in sport as well. I keep coming back to the sporting side of it. But last year, for example, for my outrigging race, I had set a goal that I wanted to be top 5. And so that was my goal. And I went to bed and I was visualizing top 5. Now, in my head, because it was actually the first nationals event that I had competed in since I'd come back into the sport again. And in my head, I was thinking top 5 woman because I had no idea how I place against everybody else in Australia. And I'm thinking top 5 woman, senior master woman or master 50 woman. I'm thinking top 5. If I can do that, I'm pretty happy with myself. We had our own race and it was senior master men, senior master woman together. The flag goes down and off we go. And as we're racing along, kind of, at the start, you're just focusing on what you're doing. So you're not really looking around. But I kind of had a look around and I'm going, hang on a minute. There's a guy in front of me there. There's a guy in front of me there. There's a guy over to my right. And there's one who was racing right beside me. And I'm kind of going, shit, I'm top 5. Not top 5 woman, top 5 in the race completely. So there were 4 guys and me. And the poor guy who was beside me, he was slightly stronger than me, but I was better at surfing the waves that were there. So, there were little bumps, so I was better catching the runners and that. So he'd kind of pull in front with his pure strength, and then I'd catch a little runner and zoom in front of him. And he got quite frustrated with that, obviously. So I'd cut him behind me and thought, oh, he's going to take a different line. And then he flipped. So he hoolied his canoe. So I'm going, oh, I'm top 4. That's kind of cool. So as we get up to the first turning buoy, then another one of the men flipped his canoe because it was a little bit rough that day. I'm going, oh, I'm top 3. So as we're racing, so anyway, in that particular race, that's when I actually finished the race, top 3 senior master person, not woman, person. And that's the thing that I laughed about was the goal that I set for myself. Now, I used to work for a company called Chris Howard Companies where we ran seminars kind of similar like to your Tony Robbins. So most people will know Anthony Robbins events and that where he's got thousands of people in the room and it keeps them up all night. I worked for an event company and later became a trainer for them where we did similar type material. We did a 3-day breakthrough to success weekend. And my job at the time was I used to look after all the sales and enrollments for the back end events. So we'd have a sales team down the back. And I was becoming a trainer at the same time. So I would do sections of the presentation from stage. Now, this particular time, I had set this goal that I wanted to speak in front of 2,000 people. I can't remember if it was 1,000 people, of an audience of at least 1,000 people, because that's a pretty massive audience, right? And so that was my end goal for being a trainer. I wanted to speak in a stadium that had all these people and be able to impact like mass amount of people. So that was my goal that I'd set it. And I was thinking, okay, this is a 3 to 5 year plan because it's going to be a long time to do that. What was interesting from this particular event, and I can't remember where it was, but it was in London. It was at a convention centre. The hall was massive, but we had 3,000 people at this particular event. So from where the room was at the back of the room to where the stage was, I reckon must have been about 80 metres. It was a long way and it was concrete. And we would wear high heels and we started at 6 a.m. and would finish at midnight. So they were long days that we're doing this. But this particular day, and this is why I'm kind of bringing up these two things, was I had this goal whereby I wanted to speak in front of 1,000+ audience. And then all of a sudden, the head guy that ran it, his name was Chris Howard. He said, "Rightio, I'd love to bring our core crew up to the stage." Most of the core crew work with him up near the stage. I'm down the back of the room, 80 metres away, and I'm the last core crew person. And he's never done this before. And he's like, "Okay, if we can have everybody up there." And the guys just look at me and and we had our AirPods and mics and radios and stuff on. And I've got the head guy going, "Terriane, run." Like, Jesus. I've got stiletto high heels on at this stage. So I'm from the back of the room and I'm having to sprint this 80 metres in stiletto high heels up to the front of the stage. So I finally get there and what he does, right, and he hands the mic around to everybody and says, "If you can just introduce yourself, where you're from and what your role is." He'd never done this before. So I'm standing on stage in front of 3,000 people in London. And of course, and I kind of giggle when they hand me the mic and I went, "Oh, this wasn't quite what I meant when I said I wanted to speak in front of a large audience." But here I was speaking in front of 3,000 people, introducing myself and telling them what my role was for that particular weekend and that. And I went, "Oh, gold ticked." Not quite what I had in mind, but gold ticked. Same things. Yeah, I've had lots of moments like that where you kind of catch yourself and go, you really need to go a little bit bigger with what you were thinking and have a little bit more clarity about what it is that goal is, right?
What was more nerve-wracking for you? The race or the speaking in front of that many people for the first time?
I reckon definitely the speaking. Definitely the speaking from the point of, definitely speaking, because I remember getting up there and just getting the mic. But I think because I had just done an 80-metre sprint in high heels, and all the way, and like you've got packs on you, and so I'm holding the microphone, I'm holding my earpiece in, I'm holding my thing as I'm running down this aisle with people, and the click, 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 because it's concrete as well, so it's trying not to make too much noise with your high heels. Click, 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 click. It was the last thing that when they shoved the mic in my face, it's kind of like, I don't know what came out of my mouth at that time, but you're just, I think it's more like the adrenaline is just so high, even at those events, even though you're working, you've got so much adrenaline coming through. I have no idea what came out of my mouth, to be quite honest. But I'd say definitely the nerves. And I think I did ask the people going, "Oh my God, what did I say? Did that come out all right? Did I say what I was meant to say?" You're so in the moment and it happens so fast, I kind of get
I saw a study once. I can't remember the exact figures, but it was ridiculous. And it was like measuring what people's fears were. And
Yes.
death was like number 4 on the list, but public speaking was number 1. And it's like, I think the percentages, it was like 40% of people who were asked what their fears were. 40%, the biggest one was speaking in public. And it's like, you would rather die than speak in public.
In public. Yeah.
We're taking a very quick break because I want to share an insight I've had regarding every guest on the show so far, and the one thing they all have in common, and that's at some point they have had a vision which is bigger than their fear. A vision bigger than their fear of achieving the result. So if you're listening and thinking, "Oh, shit, I need this kind of clarity," then you need to check out my free training. It's called The Power of Vision, 3 Keys to Mastering Your Results. It's completely free and will help you reconnect with that bigger vision and start moving you towards achieving that vision. So go to ianwhiteheadcoaching.com/dreambuilder-webinar and grab your spot. Now back to the show.
I must say, because we used to teach a speaking course and that astounds me. That actually astounds me. But even so, my son grew up underneath seminar tables. So when I first had my son, I was a trainer for that particular company. And so we would travel all around teaching NLP, teaching leadership, teaching, all those sorts of things. I went back to work 6 weeks after I had him. And so he actually, and when I say literally, so the AV table at the back of the room, he literally was in his pram underneath the AV table. And I think until he was about 2, he'd have his iPad. I was that parent, I'm sorry, who gave him his iPad to watch movies while I was on stage teaching, right? Or, you'd have volunteers who would help you run the event. So I do remember when he was really young, I don't know if this is a bit personal, but like I'd feel my milk coming on, and so I'd be kind of like, okay, everybody, 15-minute break starts now. And I'd be like, right, bring me that child. I'd quickly breastfeed down the back of the room, and the crew would come back, okay, your 15 minutes is up. He hasn't finished feeding. Give it another 5. As soon as he'd finished feeding, it'd be like, give it to one of the crew. They'd burp him and I'd run back on stage again. So it's like, just stall them. We're coming. And the crew would burp him and take him for, like, he just loves it. And I've actually got some photos of him in his pram with holding a microphone, because he'd be, because that's what he saw his mum doing, right? And I thought, oh, he's going to be great. He's not going to have a fear of speaking. But he's 16 years old now. He's just gone for leadership positions, and he plays musical instruments, and he plays a flute, actually. He's year 8. And he just did his exams, and he said, Mum, my knees were shaking so much, I was that nervous. And he's really nervous in front of people now. And even though he'll do it because, he's got the saying, right, well, that's where I need to go, so I just have to get it done. But he actually says, I can feel sweat running down the back of my legs, Mum, my knees are shaking, and he is really, really nervous. And I kind of went, I thought I'd managed to, get that. But he would rather do anything than speak in front of people. Absolutely. He's in that category as well. And I kind of thought I'd train that out of him. But do you know why I think that is, though, Ian? And okay, this is me giving my opinions now, but I think people are afraid to speak in public because they're afraid to show people who they are. They are afraid, their own fears get in the way of them doing that because they're afraid of being judged or rejected or, whatever it happens to be. I think those fears are what is why people have that as their number one goal. And I think if people just really stepped into that, they wouldn't be as scared anymore.
Yeah, it's even not to be speaking on stage, although I've started getting into speaking now with my coaching business. But in my professional job as a project manager, I remember my very first time I ran my own project, and my kind of mentor / manager at the time was like, right, you're running this one, Ian, off you go. You've had enough kind of training now, off you go. And the very first kind of kick-off meeting with a customer, it had like 15 people in there. There was the owners of the business, directors, C-level execs, and down to like end users and all this kind of stuff. And I was just sat there and I'm like, I'm supposed to be running this. I was thinking absolutely no hope and prayer on this. But now it's just absolute second nature. Just doesn't bother me whatsoever. So you just got to get over that first hurdle. As tough as it is, but stepping outside that comfort zone is the only thing that's going to help you grow and get over those fears.
Yeah.
There's obviously tools and techniques people can use to help them manage that fear at the time. But yeah, sometimes you just got to take a leap of faith.
Yeah, there was a time we did multi-speaker events where you'd have a lot of speakers come up and they'd share something and then they'd sell their back-end programs or courses or whatever it happened to be. And one of the guys, he was actually the event management person, he was speaking, and he asked me, he said, Terriane, what do I do? He's an IT guy. He's not a public speaker. He's an IT guy. And he said, Terriane, how do I do this? And I said, the best way you do this? The very start of your talk is tell them, I'm not a speaker. I'm the IT guy that runs everything at the back. I said, you frame it out. You tell them who you are, and then what they are is they will love you for being so honest and upfront. And that's exactly what he did. He just got up and said, look, I'm not a speaker. Some of these guys are so smooth and so charismatic. He said, that's not me. I'm the IT guy. I'm the guy that sits at the back. I'm the guy who has got sweat running down his things, who's sitting here shaking. And he said all of this at the beginning. And do you know what? It was one of the most endearing presentations of them all. And I think he was one of the most successful from that day because he just started with, this is who I'm not. This is who I am. And away he went. And the audience just loved him, absolutely loved him. And I think if people can remember that, they'd find the whole public speaking thing a lot easier to do just by saying, look, this isn't my forte. This is my forte. Because then people I think, more open and more accepting, and then just want to support them because they're giving it a go, you know? So that's one of the things that I like to, share with my clients, and that is that, look, just be really authentically you. Let them know that you're terrified. So even I just launched a new program a couple of months ago, and I'm doing it how I've never done it before, in terms of I'm building it as I go, based on the feedback of my pilot members that are coming through with me. Now, I am that planner. I am the person who has a 90-day schedule, who has, this is what I'm eating, this is what I'm training, this is what I have my schedules all written out. And typically when I'm doing training programs, or, like work programs and that for people, I've got everything planned out. It's all pre-done, it's all pre-recorded, it's all it's all there. And this particular one I'm doing on a week by week basis. And so I actually had to do a video with them going, I'm actually scared shitless on how this is going to turn out. And I said, and I feel like I'm all over the place. I said, I'm loving the journey, but I had to let them know. I said, there were moments where I went back into, okay, I'm going to plan all this. And I started doing some of the trainings in advance, and they bombed, because I know at this stage, it's kind of like, no, I need to be in the moment. What do they need right now? Create as we go. And so, but I had to let them know that. And that has been my most popular video, where it was actually, and I giggle with my girlfriend. It was like 9 o'clock at night. I'm trying to get a authentic background. So I'm walking outside, but I need light so it's not dark. So I'm standing outside my front patio. We live on the water here, with the outdoor lights, the security lights that come on. So I went, okay, there's good light. So I'm walking back and forward between my patio with this light, trying to express how I'm feeling with this to make it all work. And I tell you what, it was the most popular video, and my beta members that were coming through the program said, we just loved that, Terriane, because you were all over the place, but it was really clear. I said, we were all over the place, and we go, where were you? And I went, I was actually out of my patio trying to stay in between my security lights out of my front lawn. And I said, and I normally wouldn't do anything like that. And so normally I'd have a script and I'd be following the script, but I was just talking off the cuff. But they loved it. And so I think it's, for me, I don't know whether it's also coming, I say I've reached the pinnacle. Once I turned 50, it was like I reached the pinnacle. So now I'm on the downward slide of life, but I'm only halfway there. And so I'm going to make it fun all the way down. And I don't know if that's an age and wisdom thing though as well, whereas I'm like, this is authentically me, and there's billions of other people. So if you don't like me, there's somebody else that you can find that will work for you. So it's not that I don't care what people think of me, but I don't care what people think of me.
I know exactly what you
this
mean.
is me.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
There's, as you were telling the story of the IT guy who got up and said, look, I'm not a speaker. It kind of reminded me of something somebody told me once when I said I was getting into speaking, and I obviously had fear around it myself. And he said, you can have fear, but don't let fear have you. And it kind of just popped into my head as you were telling that story then, because it sounded like he kind of owned the situation and owned his own fear in that moment, and it allowed him to then make what sounds like a great presentation for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. That is definitely a good quote. That's a great quote. Write that down, people. Write that down. Yeah. Love
So
it.
tell us a little bit more
Love
about your business then. So what specifically do you do then, Terriane?
So now what I'm doing is I'm working with people. I think, actually, let me back it up a little bit. So coming through the personal development journey. So I've been doing it now for a long time. I can say that's a lot of years. Probably I got into around about 2006 was when I first started down this path. And I've always been in personal development through my sport. So with water ski racing, for example, was when I first got my mindset coach. So I would have been in my early 20s back then. And just to give a bit of context, with speed water skiing, because it's not the most popular, well-known sport, because we're racing at such high speeds, like 100 miles an hour it was actually 98 miles per hour is the fastest that I've ever been clocked skiing, which is just insane, right? I get it. It's insane. And that particular sport, though, when you fall, or if you have a fall, you break. Something breaks. And so I was lucky. So I did it for about, I think, 7 or 8 years. I didn't have my first fall until about 4 years into the sport, or 4 to 5 years into the sport. And then it was almost like the next 2 or 3 years, I had a fall every year for about 3 years and broke. I broke my knees, I broke my hand, I broke my ribs, I broke. And so you get a little bit of fear when that comes in. But part of the training back then when I was working with that coach was all around the mental side of things. And I'm so grateful for that particular sport and his coaching for me, because I think it gave me the mental strength that I have now. And so I went into personal development and did NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, for those who don't know, became a master trainer in that, used to teach presentations from schools, leadership, and a whole heap of things along those way. But a lot of that particular work. Oh, and then I met my husband. My husband's a energy healer, medical intuitive. So that laid on the energy, spiritual side of things. So I had the mental side of things. And then he probably introduced me to, or should I say, opened me up, because I'm part Māori, so I've got a very strong connection to New Zealand and the Māori culture. And
Mm.
so there's a lot of spiritual aspect that comes through through that side of things. And I've always been able to read energy. I used to see, okay, now we've gone down a completely another rabbit hole, spirits as a child and things like that. So I used to be able to connect to that side of things, but he really brought that out of me when I met my husband. And so I had this layering of the spiritual side that came onto me. But a lot of the work that we did over that time was always about, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with you? What do we need to clean out? What do we need to heal? What's the blockage? What's the, you think timeline therapy, where was the first time you did that? Or what's the belief that you made? Well, let's clean out that belief. Or what's the limiting decision? And so there was a lot of work around that. And then what happened was, during COVID, there was a person who was running an event, and they normally charge like thousands, really like high thousands of dollars for their event, but they were doing it free during COVID, during the lockdown period. And so I jumped on and I learnt a new way of doing things. And for me, that changed everything, because I kind of felt like in the personal development or the self-help, I actually call it shelf-help now. I make a joke out of it, because most people will just take their learnings and then pop them in their library and not actually do anything with them, right? So I call it shelf-help. But one of the things that we were doing is, if you have a look at it, we're taught through all of that sort of stuff is that you're wrong, or that there's something wrong with you, or that you need fixing, or that you're broken,
Mm.
or that you're... And whilst I get that there's some things that you need to do with it, this new way that I discovered was that, well, yes, you can be all of those things, but it doesn't need to stop you from where you're going. And in fact, if we look at it from the spiritual side of things, no, there's nothing wrong with you. And you don't need fixing, and you're not broken, and every time you go in, oh, we need to clean that out. It's like, well, no, you don't. You actually need to perhaps embrace it and go, well, inside that, there's a superpower. And so it was probably a really big revelation for me. And so in the past 3 years, I've completely changed my business. I've completely changed everything on how I do stuff. And the pilot program that I was talking about is called the Momentum Method. And it's really about teaching people how to work with structure and how to focus only on and where they're going and living from the end result. And so a lot of the work I do now is like, well, what do you want? Because I think that is actually probably the biggest question I find that people can't answer. Interesting enough, they actually can't answer, well, what do you want? It's very hard to achieve what you want in life if you don't actually know what that is. And so what's been interesting with this pilot program that I'm running, so I'm 2 months through it now. It was a 90-day challenge that I kind of threw out there. So we're 7 weeks into it now, and I've probably got 3/4 of the people are very clear on what it is that they want and are doing the practice. And I still have a formula. I still have a formula and a process that they follow in order of how to live from the end results in the present moment. So that's kind of like the whole thing that we're working with. And I've got one or two who are still stuck in the old way, who are going, oh, but they've got we're heading toward this, but we're heading towards that, but we're getting there. And I think just yesterday, actually, we had a call and she was like, okay, I've got two of my true choices, or the things that I really want. I try and get them to about six, having about 6 or 8 that they're going for at any one point in time. She says, I've got 2. I said, that's a start. We'll start there. I'll take that. And we're getting there, but it's been interesting. It's been 6 weeks of her just letting go of all the resistances and letting go of all the things that she thought she was wrong about, or that she thought she needed fixing about, or that she thought, all these things that were that she needed to heal and to get her head around. It's taken me about 6 weeks to get this one particular one there, to get her head around that, no, you're actually perfect just how you are. And there's a superpower in here that you've been ignoring. And if we can get your unconscious mind to know that it's safe and focus on the superpower, then you can do just that, just focus on where you're going. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I've got the pilot program of the momentum method, which obviously has got the last 4 weeks to go, but the main content we've built out, and now it's just the practice of putting everything into place that I'm getting them to do. And I've just launched or just started up the school platform. I don't know if you've ever been on the school platform or heard
I
of it
have,
at all.
yes.
Yep. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I've been kind of playing around with it for the last year, but I've only really jumped in it the last couple of months. So I'm actually setting up a community there now, which means I can kind of teach all of this new stuff that is, I would have to say, has completely changed the way that I look at everything. I don't fix anyone anymore. We don't go into the problems. We don't go into the traumas. We don't need to. And teaching them this new way. And so I'm doing that within the school platform now too. So it's exciting. It's exciting. It's my new
Amazing.
adventures, Ian.
Amazing. It sounds, I'll be honest, it sounds almost exactly the same as the kind of thing that I do with my clients. So
Yeah.
I got certified by the Life Mastery Institute to coach and train in the dream builder process. And it's all about having that vision, having that massive goal that you want to achieve in your life, and then living on a vibration that matches that achievement, so that you start to become aware of all the opportunities that you have. And then it gives you tools as well for overcoming all those limiting beliefs. It sounds so similar to what you were describing then. So we're
I
very
love
much
it because I
on the
love it.
same line.
Yeah. And I think it is a shift in the coaching industry in that, which I'm really enjoying. But I'd have to say there's not that many people doing it, Ian. So go us.
Yep.
Go us for
Flying the
leading the
flag.
way for that. Yep, flying the flag and going, they talk about, some people will be the starters, will be the ones out the front. I don't like to be, and I always kind of think, I don't like to be the first person. I kind of think of it like a Western movie where you never want to be the first person who walks in the door because you always get shot.
You always get shot.
But
Yeah.
you always get shot if you're the first person. But I'm really happy to be the second or the third, right? And lead the flag and go, come on, guys, this is the way that we want to go. But, I love hearing that, because I think that's where we need to go, because I think too many people get stuck in their own stuff and get stuck in their own way. And it's just remembering, I think people have been too scared, or we've almost been taught through school, because I listen to some of the stuff that my son gets taught at school, and thank goodness that we do what we do, that we can also give him another perspective on things.
Different perspective, yeah.
Yeah, different perspective that he can then choose which way he wants to go. But I look at our education system and I do think they kind of program our kids into, no, you must do it this way and you're limited by what you can achieve. And, I think our education system needs an overhaul and needs a lot of work to be done with that, because I think people are scared to really step over those lines and push those boundaries and dream those limitless type dreams. So I will always be a huge supporter of you, Ian, and anybody else who's like, no, go for it. You're never going to know what's possible until you give it a go.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a champion for all of that.
Speaking of schools, I don't know if have you heard of Daniel Priestley?
Yes. I've actually done some work with Daniel Priestley.
Wow. The way he talks about schools, especially in the UK, I don't know what it's like over in Australia for yourselves, but especially in the UK, how they're set up for kind of like they're still set up for the industrial age and not the digital age. And there's no kind of entrepreneurial, entrepreneurial spirit kind of encouraged in schools. It's what job are you going to get when you leave school?
Yes.
What career are you going to have? Which is kind of sad, I think. It's sad. I feel like they're just setting kids up to just fall in line with the hamster wheel, so to speak.
Yes.
There's a really fascinating article that I read, and there's a lady, Mackenzie something, I forget her surname, but she's based out of Texas. Do you know SpaceX?
Yep.
She's set up a school there where the Starbase is, and it's essentially 50% children from people who work at SpaceX and 50% children from the local community, and they have 2 hours of lessons a day in school. That's it, just 2 hours of lessons. And it's all done by AI. They obviously have a facilitator there with them. And then the rest of the time, they're working as groups, socializing and building things and creating robots and all this kind of amazing stuff. And there's some of the highest achieving kids with just 2 hours of lessons
Yes.
in like the state and countrywide as well. It's amazing how different ways of doing things can have such vast and exponential results for the kids. It really kind of opened my eyes up to how far behind kind of we're set up over here for schools. But I could go on long
Yes.
a long time
Well, I
on
think
that topic.
Oh, I know. I'll give a little. So I only have one son who's 16 now, and we looked at the Montessori, we looked at the Steiner type learning programs where they allow the child to take their own path. And we looked at all of those because I was very much that side of things. We also looked at homeschooling because I was aware of this in our education system. But we chose, because my son's an only child, we actually chose to send him to a mainstream school because we thought, right, well, he needs to learn the other aspects of what school brings, which is the socializing, which is being able to work in groups and with people. And also, one of the things that we looked at was we live in a system. So you actually have to still learn how to survive in the system. But
Mm,
it would, but what we kind of say is, or the picture that I have in my head is, have one foot in the system, one foot out of the system. And that way you
nice.
get to know how to work both of them so that you get to be able to choose, well, today I'm going to play the game in the system. Today I'm going to play the game out of the system. Or today I'm going to walk with one foot on both sides. And so that was a very conscious choice that we made with our son to send him to mainstream schooling. We're very lucky. He actually goes to a private school here on the Gold Coast who actually sent kids over to the SpaceX program last year. So they open up lots of opportunities like that, my son's been able to explore. And he actually came and did a Band of Brothers tour, which they toured Europe, singing in the choirs like the Bath Abbey. And he had an amazing, amazing experience. He played, like I kind of said, these are the memories that when you look back, you're going to go, oh, wow, I did some really cool stuff. Like he played a
Yeah.
solo flute in Bath Abbey, so and some amazing cathedrals. They sang at the top of the Arc de Triomphe, which they normally don't, you normally don't get to do. So he's had some amazing experiences like that because it is a private school and they just had these amazing opportunities that the kids can go and do. But they also are very narrow with their education side of things. And so, we made that choice. And because we can give him the spiritual side, he does manifestation. He does it way better than I do it because that's all he's known. So look, I know the school said this, Mum, but I'm doing that. Okay, great. But, so I like to think he's got the best of both worlds. And I think those opportunities are out there for people if you're just really conscious with how you're going about things.
That sounds so cool. I wish I had that kind of thing when I was a kid.
Right. Well, yeah, we just knew what we knew, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just coming to potentially start to wrap this up then, Terriane. So how has all your achievements in sport and your adventures and travels around the world, how has that come to kind of influence your business now and what you do now, which sounds like you're leading people to achieve that major goal and major dream in their life. So how's all your experience kind of combined to help you on your
I think for me, one of the things, I'm always on my own journey, right? So as well, so I certainly wouldn't say that I've got it all figured out. But the thing that I look at, so with my sports and everything like that, I'm always looking for who's the best of the best. So if, for example, like even in my outrigging that, I'm looking at, well, who's the best of the best? And right now there's a 19-year-old girl that paddles in our club and that who's just a phenomenal paddler. And when I say I'm the second fastest woman in Australia because she's pipped me 2 years in a row. She's 19, so she should, right? I'm okay with that. She's a lovely paddler. But I'm always looking at, well, who's the best and what are they doing? And so therefore, what's just one thing I can learn? Like I went out last weekend with a group of guys and there's young guys, they're in their 30s and they're just phenomenal paddlers, really connected to the water and they're all about efficiency. And so for me, I just picked his brains on the beach when we got back to the beach. So when this happens, what happens here? And I think what happens is a lot of people, particularly on the second half of life, they get very stuck in their own ways. But for me, I'm always looking for, no, there's always got to be something I can learn here. There's always got to be something that I can do. And so I think the journey for me is always looking at, well, where are other people who are doing this better than me or more efficiently than me or who are getting more enjoyment than me or have more time than me doing this? What are they doing? And so I think the biggest thing that my whole crossover with life and sport is I take that same attitude with everything. So, like the school platform, I'm learning off 20-year-olds. These 20-year-olds, though, are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. So it's about, to me, the biggest things for me is that life isn't over until I'm in the box. Until I'm done and dusted, life isn't over. I think the thing for me is that, so I'm always going to be looking at, well, who's doing this better than me and what can I learn from them? So I'm never going to be that person who thinks she knows it all. Or I'm never going to be that person who thinks I've got it all figured out, because I sure as hell don't. And I certainly have my moments along the way. And I think it's about being okay that that's the human experience we're having as a limitless spirit person that's in this body, right? So I think by having as I'm getting more mature, I think it's that acceptance of all of those parts of you that make the journey more enjoyable along the way. So for me, it's not letting go of that adventurous spirit, of that competitiveness, of always wanting to look for how can I improve my game, whether it's in work, whether it's as a parent, whether it's in my sports. It's about accepting that I bring that same person to all of those areas, no matter what I'm doing, and allowing that to shine through. Because I think I make the biggest difference when I'm being just me, and being open to being me. And that's one of the things that I like to teach people with everything that I'm doing is that, well, whatever it is that you're doing, even if it's crocheting or knitting or baking or whatever it is, which is completely different to me. I have a lot of awe
That's
for
my
people who
partner.
do that. Right. Okay. Yeah. Because I look at them and just go, they go, oh, but I just do this. I'm going, are you kidding me? Have you seen my house? I would love my house to look like these people who come in and they just make them look beautiful. Like I say, I've got a girlfriend who does this and she says, but you've got some beautiful pieces, Terriane. You just don't have them in the right place. And I said, exactly. My house looks awkward. It's not a stylish place by any means, but she says, you've got a good eye. And I said, yeah, but I just don't know how to put it all together. And she comes through and she puts it all together. I went, oh, my house looks amazing. And then time will go past. I'll go, okay, time for you to come back again, and do it again. So I think it's about really knowing that you don't have to be the best at everything because you're good at something. And that's your natural gift. And if you can really let people see what that is, well, that's how you shine and that's how you give the most back and make the biggest impact on those around you. So I think that's the biggest lesson in life that I like to share with people.
Amazing. Thank you
Did
very
that
much,
even answer
Terriane.
the question, Ian? I don't even know if that answered
It
the
did.
question.
It did. Yeah, in a roundabout way, it does. It really does. And for those that are curious, my partner made me that, which is a little Loch Ness monster crochet thing, and a little
Okay,
bear
yep.
there.
Oh, that's cute.
He's got a little backpack and a walking stick.
I love it. Love it. That's gold.
Terriane, thank you so much for coming on. I've had an absolute great time talking with you. Where can people get in touch with you?
Well, actually, so either on my socials, so Terriane Palmer. So I'm just starting up a YouTube channel, but so you can check me out there. I do have the podcast as well called the One Person Podcast, which is just me because I'll be honest, I suck at interviewing. So I did try it. It didn't work. So I decided not to do it anymore. So well done, Ian. I'll take my hat off to you. You run a great natural podcast here. Or you can come check me out. Where I'd love to see people is actually on the school community. So the school community is called the Superconscious Switch. The Superconscious Switch. So if they just search up the Superconscious Switch on the school community, it's actually free at the moment. It's going to be a paid community, but right now, because I'm just launching it, it's free. So if anybody wants to check that out, that would be amazing. I'd love to have them in there.
And that was the Superconscious Switch, did you say?
The Superconscious Switch. That's it.
Okay, excellent. We will add all the kind of links and everything in the show notes for everybody.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you again for coming on, Terriane. I really, really enjoyed that conversation. Thank you.
Loved it. Thanks for having me, Ian.
Have you ever felt like business should be more than numbers and deadlines? Like there's an entire world to explore beyond your office walls? Is adventure calling your name? I'm Ian Whitehead and I'm your guide on Uncharted, the Entrepreneur's Adventure podcast, where I bring you real stories from visionary leaders who've built empires and climbed literal mountains. Because success isn't just about the bottom line, it's about the thrill of taking risks, the courage to pursue what truly lights you up, and the freedom to chart your own course. Each week we'll dive deep into the minds of boundary-pushing entrepreneurs and adventurers, revealing how they found purpose in the chaos and discovered their true north, both in business and beyond. So, if you're ready to break free from the ordinary, embrace bold action and inject a little more adventure into your life, welcome to Uncharted. Your journey starts here.